Welcome to our Sunday Wisdom session. And when I was preparing the slides for this week, I realized that we've already covered 28 sessions. And how packed with content each session has been. And if we take any of these qualities and go into the depth of it, it's enough to live by. Now, we're covering 35 inspiring qualities. We can pick any of these, the ones that inspire us, and go to the end of it. And when you go to the end of each quality, you reach the base, which is knowledge of our real identity, knowledge of ourself. When you reach that base, all the qualities lift together. So the quality of aniketa, not being possessive, the quality of kshami, forgiving, all these qualities lift together. We have to choose the ones that are inspiring for us and work on those. And this week is no different. We have an inspiring quality to get right into it. Not an easy one to practice. And in fact, it's the essence of the philosophy. It's the essence of living lightly, freely, happily. The quality for this week is Sangavivarjitah. Sangha means attachment, to join. Attachment. Vivarjitah means to be free of attachment, freedom from attachment. Is this a positive quality? And that's the first question we have to ask. Just the wording of free from attachment, there's a connotation there that we are bound. That attachment binds, that attachment confines. So from the wording, it seems to suggest that attachment is something negative. No doubt from our previous sessions, we have a background about attachment. But just from the phrase, free from attachment, let's analyze that. How does attachment bind? Firstly, what is attachment? So the sequence of thought for this session is, what is attachment? How does it bind? How does it confine us? Then, why are we not aware of this devastating effect or this binding effect of attachment? And then lastly, how do we reach this quality? How do we practice this quality? How do we free ourselves from the binding effect of attachment? So let's start with the definition. What is attachment? Anybody? What is attachment?
Flow of thought to object or being.
A flow of thought to an object of being. Great. How does it start?
It starts as a desire.
Starts as a desire. It could be just a random thought. It starts from the mind. We know that a human being is made up of a body, a mind, and an intellect. Attachment comes from the mind. The mind has desires. You see in the diagram, it's got likes and dislikes, it's got impulses. When the mind identifies with a thought, the flow of thought, the flow of attachment starts. And when it's a small desire, we don't think much of it. It's just a flow of thoughts going. But as this flow starts generating, if you allow the mind to just ruminate, stay with it, imagine, fantasize, think about it, what starts happening is that this flow starts developing into desire, from desire into attachment. These are sometimes used interchangeably, but attachment is not just a flow, Paresh, it's a stronger flow. You've gone to a point where the flow has a life of its own. You can't just stop it that easily. But if you continue along this flow of attachment, we get into obsession. possessiveness, addiction, neutralization. This is the full range of the flow, where the flow goes so far that it completely devastates our personality. So, if we look at it, attachment is nothing but a flow of thoughts from the mind to an object. Okay, so fine, we've got a definition for attachment. Now, how does it bind? I'm going to share 4 angles, and each angle is different. We did a topic similar. If you go to quality 4 that we studied, nirmamaha, without minus, there were some similar aspects of what we're going to discuss today. So I've decided to take a different approach to it. And the 4 ways that attachment binds is, the first is, when this flow of thoughts starts generating momentum, when your mind starts liking something, desiring something, the first way it binds, you lose control of your thinking. You're not in control of your thoughts. It's as if somebody has cyber attacked your system, put a spamware, and is operating without your consent, is deciding what you should think about, what you should not think about. Even if you would like to do something, if you'd like to focus on a task, your mind is going to where you're attached to. How often we're trying to rest, we're trying to get some sleep, but where does your mind go? To our attachments. You're traveling in a car. Maybe you're going to see a place. It's a beautiful view all around, but you're not looking at the view really. Your mind is on maybe the child that decided not to come for that holiday, decided not to visit. Your mind is on the child. Why? It goes to your attachment. Or if you're attached to work, it doesn't matter where you are, you're only thinking about work. So the attachment stops you from being free, from thinking free. It's hijacked your reasoning. It's hijacked your ability to think what you want to think. This is the first one. And I think for an intellectual, for a group here that is trying to be objective, that is trying to be conscious of where we take our thoughts, to have attachment, it removes that freedom. We are being dictated by our attachment where our attention, where our thought and application should be. This is not a human life. A human life is designed for freedom. The second way, attachment binds. And why it's not something that frees us, it's something that closes us, confines us. The second way is it makes us dependent. We become dependent on that object or being of attachment for our happiness. So if something happens to that object or being, we get upset. So if you are attached to your child and the child doesn't do well in an exam, it's as if you've written the exam and you didn't do well. You're upset, you're miserable. If the spouse is frowning, is upset with you, you're upset. Look, you didn't do anything wrong. The spouse is having a bad day in the office, takes it out on you. Why are you getting upset? It is because of the attachment to the spouse, attachment to the child. Now, you can be attached to anything. You can be attached to coffee. Coffee has run out. No stock available on any of the online platforms. You go to the grocery store, the brand of coffee that you want is not there. What happens? Your peace of mind is gone. So if you look at it, we have tied our peace of mind to so many things where we've allowed ourselves to become dependent upon it. Now, there is nothing wrong with enjoying a cup of coffee, nothing wrong with identifying, empathizing with the spouse or the child. But if we place our happiness, our peace of mind dependent on the outcome, dependent on the mood of a person, you are attaching yourself to a roller coaster. You will go up, you will go down. So we become dependent. But if we just not remove the person or remove the coffee or remove any of the things that you enjoy, but remove the attachment to it, whether it is there, yes, you enjoy, but if it is not there, no problem, because you're not dependent. With it, great. Without it, fine. But right now, we sell our peace of mind so freely. And this is the question to ask ourselves. What is the price of your peace of mind? How much do you sell it for, Shakila, Sergio? Somebody hoots. In Sao Paulo, they're very good. Nobody usually presses the hooter. It's different in Mumbai. If somebody does press the hoot, how much does it upset you? Do you sell your peace of mind for that? Someone says something that you don't agree with. Do you sell your peace of mind because somebody doesn't agree with you? You expected someone to behave better. They behaved according to who they are. Does that upset you? If you look at this graph, there's a direct correlation between our development and our dependence on the world. If there is no intellect in our personality, if the mind is strong, that means our development is very low, 25% perhaps. But if you are at 25% developed, means you're living with the mind most of the time. It means you need the world to cater to you 75% of the time. What does that mean? I need the temperature to be 23 degrees Celsius. I need the partner to be in a good mood. Children must be respectful. Government must be cooperative. Business must be going only up. Is it possible to have all those factors in your favor? So we would be miserable all the time if our individual development is so low. But the more we develop our intellect, we choose not to get attached to things that are not in our control, to things that are going to change. We become wiser. We don't place our happiness there. We don't place our dependency there. So if you go all the way up to 75, it means you need the world only 25%. And if you're completely developed, a self-realized person, you're completely self-sufficient. You do not depend on the world for any of your happiness. You can remove the diagram. You can be immune to the best of things that happen in the world. It can be the worst of things that happen in the world, but because you've not placed your happiness on it, because there are no attachments, you are free. You enjoy every experience. The third way, attachment binds. And I know we have some senior students in our group who've been studying for many years. What is another way attachment binds? I've covered the main ones. So these next two are more difficult, subtler. In what way does attachment bind?
It distracts you from the self, the real self.
Great. Yes, it does. I've kept that as the fourth point.
Obsession.
I'm sorry, Manisha?
It creates obsession.
Creates obsession, yes. So we cover that in the first point. It hijacks our thinking. That's the only thing that you start thinking about. You keep on thinking about that attachment, depending how strong it is. Yes.
It leads to delusion.
Leads to delusion. Yes.
You become possessive also.
Becomes possessive, right? What happens if you are attached to an object or a person?
You control it.
You control it. You try to control it. That's what attachment is. You're trying to control it. You want to keep it the same. You want to manage the relationship. You want to keep it always a particular way. What happens when you try to do that?
You're not developing yourself.
Yeah, you're not developing yourself. You lose the object and the person of attachment. This is the sad part. And that's why it's so counterintuitive. It's because we're claiming to love the person, so we get attached to the person, but that attachment is what causes the separation, is what causes the distance. Because you're trying to control the person, you are projecting your likes and dislikes on the person's personality, there becomes a rift because that person is going to behave according to their nature. You want them to be perhaps what they were when you met them. You know, in high school, when I met you, you were not like this. I'm 45 years old. What do you expect? No, no, no. But when we got married, you were like this. Did you expect me not to change? But this is what the mind does. The mind doesn't deal in reality. It gets attached to what it wants. It gets attached to the image. And this is what creates the distance. So we lose the object and the person in two ways. One is no person can deal with that amount of control, that amount of you imposing your personality on their personality. So there becomes a split, there becomes a parting. But also, attachment is against the natural law of the universe. The universe is everything must change, including people, must move. And if you try to hold on or resist the change, it will be forcibly taken away from you. Swami Ramatirtha, he puts it so strongly because it's a law. And he says it like this: there is a law that anybody in this world who will attach himself to any personality or worldly object shall have to suffer. Either that friend or object will be taken from him, or one of them will die, or there will be a rupture between them. This is an inevitable law. If you want to protect a relationship, ensure that you do not get attached to that person. Can you love somebody so much that you don't get attached? What a way of looking at it. Now, what do we think? We think attachment means love. I cannot live without you. That's terrible. That is dependency. That is hijacking your thinking. This is complete bondage. Who wants to live in bondage? And yet we're choosing it in the name of love. This is not love. Love is freeing. Love is accepting. Attachment is binding. Attachment is limiting. And not just you lose the person through separation, rupture, parting, they'll die. But you also lose the enjoyment. And how we lose the enjoyment is the mind goes into the relationship because initially it remembers the pleasure that you got from the first contact. You enjoyed the person's company. You enjoyed the object, that first cup of coffee, that restaurant that you used to go to. But if we frequent it too often, the pleasure starts diminishing. This is called the law of neutralization, where right in the beginning, pleasure is at the maximum, and then it starts reducing. Why? Because we're indulging. Because we get attached to it and we want more and more of it. We want it all the time. So if you're attached to the person, so, no, why are you going for Sunday wisdom session? I have wisdom, spend time with me. I will be your Sunday wisdom session. Your partner might say, no, I find you spending too much time with Vedanta. So they want to be with you all the time, or you may want to be with them all the time. Say, why are you going for exercise? I'll come with you. Why are you going for a walk? Oh, I'll come with you for a walk as well. All the time together. What we don't realize, and this is the nature of the mind, is that the pleasure aspect starts diminishing. But we've done that to ourselves. We've taken something that we used to enjoy and gotten attached, indulged to such a point that we don't get any pleasure anymore. And all it needs is a little bit of intellect to bring the pleasure back. A little bit of cap, a little bit of abstinence, a little bit of elbow room. The spark is back. How do you know this? Suppose your partner has to travel or you have to travel. Suddenly, couples who don't talk at home, they're calling each other. How was your day? What did you eat? What did you eat? At home, they don't care if any of them have eaten. When they travel, what did you eat? Oh, where did you go? This is attachment. Can't enjoy with the person. When the person goes, you're missing. So all the time, there's no joy. What has done this? Attachment has done this. Not the person. It is the mind's attachment. And the last one is what Dana mentioned. And this is the most powerful one, because when you get attached to anything, to anyone, you place your identity in that object, in that person, in that aspect of your personality. But that is not your real personality. Your real personality is the self, is the spirit. So when you get attached, and you see it in the diagram, either to the body or to the mind or to the intellect or to material things, to people, that is not your real identity. So why is this important? Because your real identity is infinite. Your real identity is infinite bliss, is infinite freedom. It is light. What an identity you are. But when you choose to get attached to the body or to the mind or to the intellect or to another person, you're selling that infinitude for something that is finite, for something that is changing, for something that is not even close to what the self, the spirit, is worth. Why are you doing this to yourself? We don't know. And in ignorance, we have forsaken that infinite bliss that we actually are for poverty. Imagine you're a king and you're going and begging and you're asking a person, please me, spend some time with me, talk to me. You're a king. What are you doing? Imagine you're the ocean and you're identifying with one part of the ocean, which is the wave. And you're going up and down with this wave and you're comparing yourself to other waves. You've forgotten you're the ocean. You're everything. You don't need anything. This quality of attachment, it is something that we do to ourselves. So we impose it on ourselves. Imagine you're a bird that is designed for the skies, to soar, to enjoy, to fly, to elevate. That's what you're designed for. And then what have we done? We started identifying with the cage that we visited. And then we start looking at this cage and you say, oh, this cage, that's not nice. And then all our efforts, all our attention is to do what? Beautify the cage. Let me put a beautiful fountain. Where? In the cage. And let me see, maybe I can change the bars of the cage from metal to gold. Let me see how I can beautify the cage. And all we're doing is, we're not thinking of moving out of the cage, we're thinking of beautifying the cage. We're thinking of making it more comfortable. Where? Still in the cage. And this is what we're missing out on. And there's nobody telling us that these attachments is what's limiting us, because we are living now for the attachments. It's like improving a cage. And we get excited. Why? Because we've improved, we've moved from 2-bedroom to 3-bedroom. Wow. Smaller car to bigger car. Great. Iron bars to gold bars. You are still bound. You are no freer than before. And you are still missing out on the infinite sky. So, 4 ways attachment binds. The first is it hijacks your thinking. The second, it makes you dependent. You lose your peace of mind when it's not there or it changes. The third, you lose the enjoyment. You get neutralized. And worse still, when you're attached, you may lose the person or the object that you're attached to. And the last one, you lose the spirit, the self. When you mistake your identity, you identify that self, that king, that infinity with something finite, with something temporary, with something passing, trivial. This is how attachment binds. Is this clear for everybody? Yeah? Then what is the problem? The problem is that we're not aware of it. We're not aware of our attachments. And then secondly, we don't see anything wrong with it. So earlier, we were mentioning about how, in fact, attachment is glorified. Parents enjoy it when the children say, I missed you, mom. I missed you, dad. We get a kick out of it. Oh, you miss me? You're thinking about me when you're in college, in the college that you decided to go and study overseas? Oh, wonderful. I'm so glad. I hope that you're thinking about me so much you can't study. What is this idea? So we glorify the attachment. So, I call my son 3-4 times a day. He's in the US. I call him 3-4 times a day. Yeah, that's how much we love each other. He's gone for a purpose. Why are you disturbing? Now, one is if there's an emergency, of course, or if there's a connect once in a while, no problem. Something to share. But 3-4 times a day? So we're unaware of it. We glorify it. And we see this in our society as well. Most popular love story? What's the most famous love story?
Romeo and Juliet.
Hmm? Romeo and Juliet. In India, there's a different couple, Manju and another person.
Laila and Manju.
Laila and Manju. Huh? Same.
Ranja.
Both terrible examples because absolute attachment. What happens to one must happen to the other. Romeo and Juliet, it's glorified as a great love story. They hardly knew each other. They met briefly. They spent one night by the balcony. And then, due to some miscommunication, they did not have any FedEx, DHL, the courier didn't get through. They didn't get the message in time. The one sees the other one has already passed, but actually they're not passed, but they kill themselves thinking the one has passed. And then the other wakes up and sees, oh, this person has passed, so now I'll pass. What is this madness? This is love? So it's glorified. Have you watched the movies John Wick? Keanu Reeves? The dog is killed. And because the dog is killed, an entire population of beings he has to take revenge on. What is this idea? But we see this, right? We see this in the movies, what a person is able to do if somebody that they're attached to is taken from them. But is there no sense of proportion? Is there no way of looking at it evenly? Does it mean you must declare war on a country? But this is what is glorified. If you're attached to something and somebody attacks your attachment, you go all out. This is not necessarily love. And that's what we are exploring today. Let us be aware of our attachments. And if we're not aware of it, what happens is, it is a virus. We mentioned how it overtakes our thinking. It infiltrates our relationships, destroys the relationships. It destroys our spirituality. But what we're doing by not being aware and by not checking it, we're passing on this virus. We're passing it on to our children. We're passing it on to our society, to our community. Some people will say, you are not a good enough parent. Why? Because you're not attached enough. How does the other person know what you're feeling, what you're thinking? But they will give the measures of it. But this is how we pass on the virus. And the generation after us has no chance, because what do they inherit? They inherit this virus. So if at all we are going to make a difference in this world, at least in our lives and to those around us, let us start working on the antivirus. And the antivirus is to develop the intellect. The intellect is the only aspect that can manage the mind. So what do? How to develop this intellect to manage attachments? What can we do?
Can we say be open to new possibilities, new reality, and have a higher goal, higher desires that are more meaningful?
Great. Vasu?
Change your thought flow to a high plane of thinking, which is the self.
Okay, so we covered one of the main principles. So the first part is we've got to develop this intellect so that the awareness, the conscious, is more powerful than the mind, the subconscious, which is flowing by itself. So if our intellect is sharp and we develop this intellect through our morning study, with the e-learning course, with the reflection, when we develop our intellect, when a thought comes, like how we started the session today. What is attachment? It's a thought from the mind that starts generating flow. If before it generates flow, you're able to catch it, you don't get the flow. You don't get the attachment developing. You've caught it right in the beginning. If you don't catch it right in the beginning, if you allow it to wander, it starts generating momentum. Still, you can catch it. And the example that's used is like dropping a bouncing ball at the top of a flight of stairs. You drop it, on the first step, it bounces, you can catch it. But then if you leave it, it goes to the third step. And if your intellect is sharp enough, it can still catch it. But after the third step, it goes to the seventh step. Thereafter, it's got its own momentum. The mind takes over. So we want to develop the intellect. And some aspects that we can use to ensure that we do not get attached to anything, anyone, is remembering everything must pass away. Everything must change. So do not get attached to something that must pass and change. Simple. Simple to say, difficult to practice, because it's so attractive. It is something that we want to stay forever, but it cannot. And our intellect reminding us that it must pass away, do not get attached. That's the reminder. And the second aspect is chapter 5, verse 22 of the Bhagavad Gita. It says, remember that all these pleasures, these contact-born enjoyments, they are dukkha yonaya, which means they are wombs of sorrow. You're thinking you're enjoying them, but wombs of sorrow, and look how beautiful the imagery is. It means it's not born yet, but it must bear fruit. So similarly, if you get attached to any object or person, it is a womb of sorrow. It's going to happen. So if a person is attached, there's no escape. Karma, the law of cause and effect, is meticulous. The sorrow will be born. So if we keep these two things in mind, any attachment is going to cause me suffering. One, anything that I get attached to is going to change, disappointment, suffering. Therefore, your intellect is ever vigilant. You enjoy, but don't get attached. And the second aspect is what the group has mentioned, Vasudana. Yes, it is the way to get rid of our current attachments is to pitch a higher desire, a higher goal. And because of that higher goal, that higher desire, these lower desires fade away. So what we're doing is we're redirecting the flow to a happier, better, more pleasurable, more long-lasting enjoyment. And because you're getting better pleasure there, better happiness quality there, you leave the lower. A person who is attached to the highest, what is the highest?
The sense.
The self. Self-realization, God. A person who's attached to the highest, he is detached from everything in the world. And that's why Sangavivarjitah, free from attachment. Why? Attached to the highest. So what do we need to do to free ourselves from these attachments that we're in at the moment? Pitch higher goals. But don't get stuck there. Don't get attached even there at the higher goals. Keep moving, keep moving. Swami Ramatirtha, he says, the desire for God is not like any other desire. It is fire, a consuming fire that burns all other desires into ashes. Again, great imagery from these saints. But that's what the desire for the highest. And when I say this is, why will we leave candlelight? You leave candlelight because you get torchlight. Why will you leave torchlight if you've got room light? And if you've got room light, why will you not need room light? You've got floodlight. Why would you not want floodlight? You've got the sun. This is the idea. We are playing with 50 watts, 100 watts, 150 watts. These are the pleasures that we are dealing with. And we're getting attached. Oh, 250 watts. Wow. So bright. Wow. Great. So much light. And then as a shelf life ticks off, okay, get another one. Oh, no, there's a brighter one. But all of this is insignificant compared to the brilliance of the self. You get that light, all these others fade away. There's no comparison. And that's why what we need to do is just get onto that fast track. Get onto the highway of realizing what the joy of the self is, the spirit is, all these desires go. So what is the life free from attachment? It does not mean not having people that you love in your life. It's not enjoying. It's not working. It is to love without clinging, to act, but without expectation, obsession. It is to enjoy without possessiveness. It is to live without the heaviness. Let us strive to remove our attachments. How? By pitching up higher goals. That is our topic for the week. I picked a question of the week that aligns with our topic for today. And it is this highest goal. The question of the week is, how does one develop mumukshatva? What is mumukshatva? Mumukshatva is a Sanskrit word. It means a desire for liberation. And it is this desire for liberation, and it's talking about the ultimate. It's a desire to not go through all the ups and downs of desire, not to go through all the ups and downs of birth and death and change. It is to transcend all of that. So the desire for liberation is self-realization, God realization, nirvana, enlightenment. This is what they're saying. In order to have this desire for liberation, you've got to be aware of your bondage. And that's why this topic was so important. To be aware of our attachments and how they are binding us. Because if we're not aware of it, we're not going to change it. If you don't know that you're in prison, so the accommodation's pretty good here. Nice facilities. Because you don't know anything else, you don't know anything more, there's no desire to move beyond. So you got to be aware of your bondage, aware that you have a virus in order to get better. Swami Parthasarathi wrote the book Vedanta Treatise. It is the guide to enlightenment. Takes you shoulder to the ultimate truth. But having written this masterpiece, taking almost 2 decades, a little bit more to write it, he wrote more books. Why do you think he wrote more books? If the solution is there, and you know those books, those of you who are doing the e-learning course, The Fall of the Human Intellect, Governing Business and Relationships, The Holocaust of Attachment, why did Swamiji write the books?
To continue disseminating the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
The book has solutions, but like people don't know that there's a problem to begin with. So to make that awareness that please find that there's a problem.
Great. The book is the answer. It is the cure. It is the happiness that we're all seeking. But the trouble is, people don't know that they are suffering. So you ask any person on the street, they'll say, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm okay. You keep your philosophy. So we're not even aware that we're suffering. Stress is just normal. Not enjoying work, of course, who enjoys work? It's just accepted. People talk about relationships. Yeah, of course there's drama in relationships. Why? There's friction. Why is there friction? We've just accepted it as normal. So Swamiji had to write the books so that people can be aware oh, this is suffering. This is imprisonment. This is bondage. Okay, I don't want this. I want the freedom of self-realization. So you need to go through the initial books to get on to Vedanta treatise. In The Holocaust of Attachment, Swamiji gives a quote where he says, to suffer from a disease is bad enough, and not being aware of it could prove fatal. People are totally blind to the epidemic of attachment. If you're not aware of your disease, that is fatal. One is to suffer from it, but if you're not aware that you're having the disease, finished. So, a person who has mumukshatva, this is a person who has understood the bondage of this world and has committed themselves to finding the solution, the goal. Now, how does one develop it? You're saying, like, I want to develop this mumukshatva. I want to find freedom and liberation, reach the ultimate, become a Buddha or a Krishna. I want to reach that, a Mahavir. Then what's the problem? The problem is you can't develop mumukshatva. It is there in every human being. It's almost like this gravitational force pulling you back towards your origin. It's there. But then what's the problem? Why don't I hear it? Why don't I feel it in the same degree or intensity as these great sages? We don't feel it or experience it because of all the other worldly desires. And these worldly desires make so much of noise, this desire doesn't surface. And that's why the basic requirement for this knowledge or to pursue this path is that more or less your worldly desires are a little quieter. They're not so loud. And then you start hearing it. You start seeking it. I wanted to share some of the quotes that these great sages have put into it, because the way they describe mumukshatva. The first one is by Swami Chinmayananda. And Swami Chinmayananda says, mumukshatva is the cry of the soul. So it's your spirit saying, get back. This is where you belong. This is your identity. Mumukshatva is the cry of the soul, tired of its own ignorance, yearning to return home to the infinite. What a description. So I called it a force. Swami Chinmayananda says it's a cry of the soul. Again, Swami Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, he describes the urgency and the power of this desire. He says, when the fish is out of water and pants for air, that is how must one yearn for God. Only such longing, mumukshatva, brings realization. Means you must want it so badly. It's like, I must get back to where I can breathe, where I can survive. Another similar example. He says, what would be your urgency if you were to push somebody's head underwater? The urgency for them to get oxygen. So there's no other thought. It's just, I must get oxygen, air, air, air. That's how you should feel. In terms of sincerity, in terms of dedication, in terms of urgency. Now, what do? Last thing in our to-do list is, okay, let me read some Vedanta. Let me read a little bit about liberation. Let me see if I can join the Sunday Wisdom session. It's low priority for us. Here, the desire for liberation or true mumukshatva is that kind of urgency. Rabindranath Tagore says, that I want thee, only thee, let my heart repeat without end. All desires that distract me day and night are false and empty to the core. Now, how can we get this kind of inspiration? There are two things that we could do to quieten the worldly desires and bring this desire for liberation to the surface. The first is, let us be aware of our bondage. Right? Where we find our thoughts are not our own, our thoughts are being hijacked, where we find we are dependent, let's be aware of the bondage. Then we want to liberate naturally. And the second is Atma Bodha, which is knowledge of self. If we get some idea of what liberation looks like, what freedom is, what the self, our real state promises is, then we value that. We want that. So we want that. So it's assertion of the ultimate, but it's also negation of what we don't want. And these two side by side might give the support for the worldly desires quietening and the desire for liberation rising. Now we open to questions. You can ask a question from what we covered today, or any questions that you have from your study or that's been on your mind. Yes, Michael.
I guess I'm just looking at the cry of disbelief or anxiety or from Alan P. And I empathize with his perspective, but I would love you to find a few words for us to, I mean, you've been saying those words, but I guess that's the challenge, is that all of us have families, all of us have commitments, and we think our life is driven by those things. So your perspectives are very hard to digest and essentially turn into our new commitment.
So here's the beauty of it, Michael. It's not leaving behind any of those duties or those responsibilities that we've taken up. It is changing the reason why we do them. So before we were doing it for financial security, we were doing it for familial attachment. I'm saying change the motive. Do the same thing that you were doing, taking care of the children, the family, your students, your community. Do all of that, but do it for self-realization. And when I say do it for self-realization, means dedicate your thought for that. Say, that's what I'm doing it for. And every thought that goes there, in and through what you're doing, is taking you and bringing this mumukshatva to the surface. So you could be a gardener and you could be the greatest mumukshakti. I mean, desiring liberation. You could be in this field and you may not. You may be very material. You might be doing spirituality for earning wealth. So it doesn't matter what you do. It's the how and the why you do it that makes you desirous of liberation, that makes you truly spiritual. So I hope that helps, Michael. Razia.
You said attachment to objects or to people, and ultimately it's attachment to Maya, to everything that isn't, and it's like it's not it's like being like a witness to what is, like just looking at it and observing what is happening as you would in a movie.
Yes. So this is what we're suggesting, is not indifference. And I'm reading Alan P.'s question here about the struggle with attachment. And it is a struggle because we've been so conditioned to believe that's what love is. To love better is not indifference where you don't care, you don't have the feelings. To love better, to be more present, to understand the other person's needs detachment. It means taking a step back from the mind and what the mind wants and likes and demands, and looking at what's best for the person, what's best for the situation, what's best for your growth. This comes from detachment. We can understand a person better when we are detached, where we are not projecting our demands, our likes and dislikes on them. So yes, we get into a relationship because we have needs and we have desires, but we should grow in the relationship to try and become more independent and love without the craving, without the dependence, to support the other person's independence and growth. So I would say detachment actually refines the relationship and brings out a different layer, quality in those close relationships. It is not about not caring, but it is being detached enough to care in the way the person understands it, in the way the person can relate to it. Radhika. Monisha first, then Radhika.
Thank you. Can you tell us or me more about the attachment between a parent and a child? Let's take, I have a very young child. So how does this, come along?
So, Monisha, as a parent, the idea is to understand what is the role of a parent. If we see the natural kingdom, the idea of the parent is to share skills that make the child independent so they can go and live out their life. So we're protective at first, and we see this with all of the animal kingdom, protective at first, but once they have the skills and the ability to set them free. Now, are we making them independent, or are we making them more dependent on us? So as a human being, our tool for being independent is developing the intellect. So we should try and help develop the intellect of the child. Help them find what is their nature in terms of field that they're interested in, and encourage them to flourish and encourage the independence. And when they can, fly. Without our intervention later on, without our holding them back and thinking about us, who's going to look after me when I'm older, who's going to take care of me, who's going to pay my bills, without looking at them as some investment scheme. But truly understanding that's a form of life that comes through you, but not from you. So you're not an owner, you're a trustee. And your part is to help the child find its nature, give it the skills to be independent, and live their best life. You know, we usually take about 2 hours for a parenting session. I'm just confining it. But the best thing you can do for now, Monisha, is to gain the knowledge yourself, absorb it, and that's what the child will absorb. Lead the way. Radhika.
Thank
I I was asking that who is better off, a person who has more attachments but which are less intense, or somebody who has fewer attachments but are very intense?
It's a good question. It depends on the intensity of suffering. So if you add up those little attachments that cause agitation, but those little agitations cause a great deal of agitation that overwhelms the personality, that might be too much. But they're all individually small. But when they accumulate, it could be too much for the personality. The person gets stressed, overwhelmed, has a burnout, breakdown. But then you could have very intense attachments, and that one attachment is enough to derail your personality. So Radhika, I'd like to suggest a third option is having less attachments with less intensity, best peace of mind, better sleep. He's better off or she's better off. So third option. So it is the degree of agitation. That's what we've got to do. So we've got to do a agitation measure. How agitated is your mind? And Deepak Bhai.
So, Nakaji, my question is an extension of your answer that do it for self-realization. Yeah. I'm just trying to visualize really and working hard at it that how do I look at a particular action that I'm doing now and change my internal orientation to make it, directed towards self-realization. To just kind of put some flesh on this question, in the context of family, we have a family and therefore there are situations. And in those situations, we have a shared goal that if that were to happen, then, we would feel happy, that agitation would disappear. That's how we are living our life in a practical sense. Now, in such a situation, we are working towards finding solutions to our problems and situations. And when things go our way, we are happy. If they don't go our way and we are on the path of Vedanta, we are able to process it because then we put the right value to things not happening. We put the right perspective to it. So this I totally understand. I'm trying to extend it now to say, how do I work towards solving a problem, towards our internal satisfaction with the self at the end point?
So firstly, Deepak Bhai, the concept of self-realization, it may not be tangible for everybody. So if we don't have a clear idea of what it is yet, park it because it's not going to inspire you. Use a more intermediate, higher goal, which could be the family's welfare, or it could be working for the community, or it could be sharing knowledge, sharing skills, sharing your product with a broader audience. These are the higher goals. So you got to find the higher goal that works for you. So in your case, where if you're saying your higher goal is the family, when we do these family duties, it is about what's in the best interest of everyone. But at the same time, understanding that each one has to decide for themselves. So I can only, in my part, wishing the best for the family, play my part to support each member in what they want. That's it. But if I impose what I think is best, that is the attachment. So it's a fine line there. It is supporting the person's growth. So that would be the higher goal there. That would be thinking beyond yourself for what is best for that person, that larger unit. And I just take up these few questions that were in the chat and then we'll close the session. So, Alan, your question about living with somebody for so many years and not being attached, is it possible? It is very, very difficult not to be attached. It is the nature of the human mind. But being human also means using the intellect. And we have not learned yet how to feel intensely, but also use our intellect to manage that feeling. We can be both. We're not either or. We're not feeling and thinking. We can be feeling and thinking. And that's what detachment is. Where you can feel, you can empathize, but you're not swayed and you're not overwhelmed by the emotion. If you're overwhelmed by the emotion, it means the attachment has overtaken your ability to think, function. So, being in a marriage myself, going on 20 years, one of the things that I had to prepare for was, what if there's a change? It could be separation or it could be loss. Would that person be taken care of? Would I be okay mentally? So preparing for that. And when you prepare for that, then you end up enjoying what you have in the present more so. You're more appreciative of the present, but you're also insulated for what may happen later. Why? Because you've prepared for it, so that attachment is not there for that situation. So Mala, do we need to have a healthy detachment rather than total attachment in every way? Attachment, unhealthy. Detachment, healthy. When you say healthy detachment, detachment is healthy. and dismissing the first thought. Yes, that's the best solution, Deepa, to stopping any attachment from developing. But what about the attachments that we have? Those are tough. Those need a lot of knowledge. Those need higher goals, higher attachments. So they're not going to disappear, the attachments that we have. We need something higher in order for that attachment to come back into perspective and not overpower our personality.
Thank you.
Okay. So thank you, everybody. Just one point before we part. We will continue our sessions until the end of November. And then there's going to be a break in December. And we'll restart in mid-Jan, the Sunday Wisdom sessions. So I know there are many people who watch the recordings. Live is always better. So if you can join us for these last few sessions of November, and then in December, we break because we're going to be having the live retreats at the Academy. See if you can join us. So thank you, everybody. Hari Om.